In this video, we're going to look at a detailed explanation of how the overview report works. So at the top, we've got our date range selection. Currently set this to the last week. And then we always query data by saying show stats for X when communicating with Y. So show stats for my company when communicating with anyone means show stats for everyone that I've loaded onto Time to Reply when communicating with anyone. So it could be internal communication or external communication. You could also click into here and say, okay, show me how just one particular person is performing. So if I say, how is Ansi doing? Those are Ansi's stats. If I wanted to see how Ansi was communicating with everyone external, so customers and suppliers, I'd say, how is Ansi communicating with everybody else? And those are her stats. All right, so for now, I'm going to set it to how is my company doing with everybody else. You could also choose a team, a group mailbox, so you can set those up under tools. But for now, we're going to say show stats for my company when communicating with everybody else. So you can see that they've received 4,879 conversations, or they've been part of. So you can see that they've been part of 4,879 conversations. So a conversation is essentially an email thread. So if I send an email in, you reply to me, I reply back to you, that's one conversation. Emails received is obviously the number of emails that you've received, and emails sent is the number of emails that you've sent. You can click on more to get more granular breakdown of these stats, so you can see how many of those were initial emails, so the first email in a new conversation, how many of those were replies, how many of those were forwards. And the same is true for the other stats. We then get into what we are really trying to track and optimize, which is the average response times. We've got a set of green numbers and a set of blue numbers. The green numbers take business hours into account, whereas the blue numbers ignore business hours. So if your business hours were 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, and an email came in on Sunday and only got a response at 9:30 a.m. in the morning, the green numbers would see that as a 30-minute response time, whereas the blue numbers would calculate the total time from Sunday through to Monday 9:30 and include that in their response time calculations. Okay, so we have got three different metrics. These are all averages. So the average initial reply time is the average amount of time it takes to respond to the first email of a new conversation. So I email in and you take 30 minutes to reply to that first email. That 30 minutes would go into the average initial reply time. So each time that happens, we'd average that out. The overall reply time is an average of all replies. So not only the first reply, but every subsequent reply in a conversation. And then the overall forward time is the average time it takes you to forward emails. Okay, so because these are averages, we'd also want to give you more information around the actual behavior behind that stat. So their average response time is 1 hour and 6 minutes and 18 seconds, but you can see that 71% of the time they're responding in under 30 minutes. 81% of the time is under an hour, so you can get an idea of the actual behavior. Now, if I was to change this to, let's say, someone like Chady, okay, her average is 1 hour 55, but her behavior is quite different. So 58% of the time in under 30 minutes, 50% of the time in under 15 minutes. So half the time very, very fast. Otherwise, she'll get back to you a little bit later. Okay, so you can do that for any of your mailboxes that you add, or teams or group mailboxes. Teams and group mailboxes will appear towards the bottom of the list. All right, so I'm setting that back to my company. And the next thing that we're going to look at is the agent email totals breakdown table. So this is a list of all the mailboxes that you've added to the system, and you've got these different columns with data. If you click on the plus sign, you can see that you can include or exclude any of these metrics in this table, but by default, we show these 6 columns. If you click on any of these columns, you can rank the column by the metric. So I've ranked it by initial time to reply. So this is the average initial reply time. And you can see Unsee, Tino, JD are the slowest of this lot. If I was to rank it the other way around, you'll see the sales mailbox is very fast, Bernard is very fast, and so on. You can see how many email conversations they've been part of, how many emails they've received, and how many emails they've sent. We then have a statistics by day graph. So essentially how many emails have been received, how many emails have been sent over the date range that you've selected. So let's go and open up this date range a bit. Okay, so you can see that was that particular week, the next week, and now it's actually getting a little bit busier. And then we plot the average reply times, the average overall response times, your average forward times, which fluctuate quite dramatically. And if you click on any of these, you can toggle them off or on. We've then got average traffic by hour. So you can see that they have their busiest time in the mornings. Just before lunchtime it gets busy, tapers off, and then again in the afternoon before people knock off. We look at averages, so the average number of conversations per day, average number of emails received per day, average number of emails sent per day. We look at traffic by weekday, so this is the average number of emails received by day. So this is a fairly normal distribution, but it can vary dramatically from company to company and in different industries. All right, and then the last one is the agent reply ratio. So here you can see that on average they're responding to between 15.5% and 22% of all email that comes into the system. Now obviously not every single email requires a response. We have got a tool under filters that allows you to exclude certain emails from being included in the statistics. We've also got a feature under tools settings where you can identify a closed mailbox. So you create a mailbox on your side. It could be called closed or closed conversations at yourdomain.com, and any email that you forward to that email address that you set up, our system will pick up on that and it'll mark that email as closed on our side. All right, so the other thing that people tend to want to look at is show stats for my company when communicating with everyone else, and specifically look at inbound. So in other words, conversations that have started from people external to your company, that's an inbound conversation, and then they want to see those stats. So on average, they're responding in 1 hour and 45 minutes to all inbound conversations from external parties. Their overall reply time is quite similar, and the overall forward time is 10 hours. All right, that's it. Thanks very much.